Okay, Instagram looks like it could be running. Instagram looks good. We look good. And I'm going to double check that. Peace be with you, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to episode 17 of Tenconi Talks, live and direct from Tenconi Towers, discussing what Christian nationalism means and our mission to save Britain and how you can make yourself a part of that history. I am honoured and blessed to be with our lead spokesman, Father Calvin Robinson. Father, good afternoon. How are you doing?
I'm splendid, Nick. Glad to be here remotely in Tenconi Towers. How are you?
I'm the same as you, and that is very hungry and very hungry and very grateful and involved. If I up my prayer game, I can only imagine what you do as well. So it's
good though,
I
isn't
know
it?
obviously, yeah. Look, it's
Lent is
brilliant.
like,
It is.
we have so many pleasures in this world thanks to our Lord. He created such a good world, but so many of them are forbidden. And so food and drink, good food and good drink are some of the few pleasures we have in life, in moderation, where we're not sinning. And so Lent, we pretty much give those things up. And it's an important sacrifice to remember that Christ gave the ultimate sacrifice for us. And what we're asked to do is nothing in comparison. But also, I don't know about you, but I find when I do give those things up, I'm looking for that spiritual joy in other places. And I often find it in God's good creation, just driving down a nice country road and you get a peak of sunshine through the blooming clouds that we have plenty of here. It's like you get that little spark of reminder that you can find happiness and joy in things that aren't earthly, that aren't tangible. Well, certainly earthly, but not tangible. Things that you don't consume. It's nice to be reminded to look for goodness in other places, and I think that's part of what Lent is about.
Thanks be to God. We're going to talk more with our wonderful audience. We're going to talk more about what both Father and I are doing during Lent to hopefully arouse some inspiration if it's required. Tonight's main segment is going to be calling out the liars, calling out the cowards, calling out the hypocrites. That's our main segment tonight. But first, as always, let us begin with the not so quick fire round to discuss and assess just how insane and confusing the world is increasingly becoming. In the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, Amen. I'm going to, for the first time ever, put Father on the spot. And for those of you that watch our little show here, we don't rehearse. I mean, obviously, both myself and Father are seasoned professionals, so we're good to go at a moment's notice. But we don't rehearse. We don't need to rehearse because we both have the same access to the same political segments and stories that happen. We know what's what. We've got our 6 missions. For those of you who aren't aware, go on the UKIP website. There's 6 missions. That's what we're doing. That's our pledge to take the country back. So for the first time ever, I'm going to put Father on the spot with something he doesn't know I'm going to ask him. But the reality is that with the time difference, him and I don't have an awful lot of opportunity for two people that are busy tending to very different flocks each day. We don't have the opportunity necessarily to converse. So, Father, recently, as you know, a new political entity has arisen on the right. We all know the details, and we're not going to spend our time talking about that which is unimportant. We know that Restore Britain in June of last year, led by Rupert and a team of about 4 or 5 or 6 Zoomer online warriors. We know who these people are. We know what they stand for. We know that Restore Britain got made up, and it's a movement, right? Same with the Great British Pack run by Habib. Same thing about the pledge. They're movements. There's a set of values, set of ethics. You can sign up, you can join in, you can donate, but they're not a political party. So we know cutting through it. We know every time this happens in an overcrowded, completely saturated market between the centre right and the right, not just the liberal ground and the right, but the centre right and the right, whatever centre right means, we always know that it's going to be the same thing. It's somebody, an entity who doesn't back themselves, who's testing the water. That's what's happening. That's what they're doing. That's the business model. And that's not a slur. They're not going all in until they know that it's worth it, them doing it. Now, that is my position with regards to the creation of new right-wing, centre-right entities. That's what happens. And we've seen that model over and over again. The latest
Well,
model,
I don't know if they don't go all in. I think it's just that the Electoral Commission is such a lengthy process. I remember when Lawrence filed for reclaim, and I gave him some advice behind the scenes and whatnot, but I was never a member of reclaim. But I remember having conversations with him, and he was trying to file. So you come out as a movement, you get some support, and you're trying to file as a party, and they'll put blockers in your way. You've had this with the logo. Like, they'll do it. The bureaucracy will do anything they can to stifle you from coming up if you're on anything on the right of centre, unfortunately.
Yes. So all our institutions have been captured, and all of those things are true, and the tactics that get deployed by the state and by our captured institutions are despicable. But the fact remains that last summer, Restore was a movement, and now it's converting into a political party. So obviously, when you have missions and a manifesto, and that manifesto is filled with policies, and you have that in, say, 2024, 2025, and then new parties come along, and all of these right-wing parties have the same policies, everyone needs to turn their heads to where these policies are coming from. Who's making the decisions? Where are these policies coming from? Because what the electorate and what the patriots do is say, well, hang on a minute, this all looks and sounds the same. You've just got a different leader. You've got a different leader, and everything else is pretty much the same. So my question to you, Father, is what's your response to Lowe coming in on Nigel's ticket? Remember, completely below radar. Before December of 24, no one knew who Rupert was. Then he got platformed and said right-wing stuff. But he came in on Nigel's ticket. He owes everything, does he not, to Nigel? And now he's the leader of one of the schisms. Obviously, Ben Habib is a schism, and now Rupert is a schism. What was your initial reaction to Rupert saying, right, we're going to register Restore as a political party?
So I don't see it as harshly as that. I see it, I think, probably a bit more charitably than that. I think, yes, they got elected under Nigel's party, but Nigel doesn't work well with others. The moment anyone else shines any kind of brightness, he gets rid of them, which is why Nigel Farage, his party will never truly succeed while he's in power, which may not be for very long. I don't think he particularly wants to be prime minister, if at all, for very long. He wants to be in the establishment. He wants to be invited to the clubs, the parties, the dues that he's been left out of for years. Ben Habib and Rupert Lowe, on the other hand, have a lot of good ideas, good policy. They're good men. I know them both. I've known them for years. I don't think Rupert Lowe didn't exist before 2024. I remember interviewing him at least 2019. He was fighting to defund the BBC, which I was the face of. So I think he's been doing this stuff for a long time. He's genuine. He's conservative. He's right wing. I think he's a good man. I think Ben Habib is a good man too. I know Ben. His office was underneath Lawrence's office in London, where we had the Fox and Father studio for a while. So I've spent, had many conversations with him. Think he's honest and wants to fight this good fight. Farage, I think, wants personal things rather than wants to fight the good fight. I don't think he has integrity. The other two, I think, do. So I was hoping that when they left, they'd come together. They didn't, for whatever personal reasons, and Ben ended up forming a party. Rupert ended up forming a movement. But Rupert's been quite clever because he's waited for the right moment. So if you see what happened with Reform, all the dregs of the Conservative Party joined Reform, right? So you've got all these careerist politicians who just want to be put in politics to save their job, not necessarily to make the country a better place, which is what politics should be about. They've all gone to Reform now. So they kind of expose themselves, and Reform is a sinking ship as well as they're jumping from one sinking ship to the other because they thought, okay, Reform is clearly going to get in because that's where everyone's going to vote, not knowing that what was going to happen a little bit down the road is that Rupert Lowe launched Restore Britain. Now that means he has a platform to get genuine conservatives in Britain, genuine patriots, genuine nationalists to come together, and it's launched with a tremendous momentum that is incredible. And these things are very rare. Like Farage, to his benefit, one thing he's very good at is building momentum, or jumping on the front of a bandwagon and making it look like he built the momentum, as he did with Unite the Kingdom, which some of us helped to organize, and Farage jumps in the front of and tries to claim all that for himself. But because it's never about the country for him, it's always about himself. But I think Rupert Lowe's timing is perfect. The momentum is great. I'm hoping that Ben Habib will stop having public conversations and manage to have some private conversations with Rupert Lowe, because the two of them should be working together. I've said similar things to you privately. I didn't know we were going to have this conversation on air, but I've said similar things to you. Like, everyone who wants to make the country a better place, believes in Christian nationalism, is a patriot, needs to come together, because Reform could potentially win otherwise, and they're none of those things. Like you, Ben Habib, Rupert Lowe, I believe all three of you have good ideas, good policies, and good intentions and integrity. And so that's what I'm hoping and praying for, that there's a way for all three of you to work together.
Thanks be to God. And this is it, patriots. Our position is clear. You're hearing it here live and direct, but certainly over the last week, 10 days, it's about unity. And I'll tell you for why. And I know where Father's coming from. If you're involved in politicking, you know a little bit about strategy, 3D chess, and how it all unfolds. If you've got three leaders and they're all occupying a right-wing space, at the general election, you will have a splitting of the vote. It's that simple. Now, in the case of Reform and Tories and their merger, which is inevitable, that's the centre ground. All's fair in love and war. That's fair. What you can't have is, if you've got Reform and Tories in the middle, well, Labour in the middle ground-ish, sort of. What you can't have is then on the right, three pretty much similar, very, very similar, almost identical, apart from the Christian nationalism side of it. There are key differences, but ideologically, I want to come back to Father on a particular point. If you have that, and everyone is standing, so you've got hundreds and hundreds of candidates. Reform said they were going to do 650. I think they did 450. I don't remember the exact number. It's very difficult to get 650 candidates, again, in 5-year election cycles. But if the three men and the three parties, myself and my party included, if we're all the same and we all do the same, you will get a splitting of the vote. There is an argument to say, and Rupert obviously has taken this stance, which we knew he'd take, knowing what we know about him. He's saying, actually, let's go for gold, let's go for glory. So it's we're going to win. We don't care about what you do or don't do. The problem with that is that it's all very well and good until you split the vote, and this is what happened in the general election in summer 24. Everyone went behind Reform, all in. But if you look at the Tory Reform dynamic, the vote got split. And we see this again and again and again. In Runcorn, where Sarah Ponchin won, she won by 6 votes. So my question back to you, Father, is this. My message is unity. There has to be unity where you've got 3 leaders and 3 parties in an incredibly overcrowded space. And I will remind you that our manifesto came out first. Our policies and missions, all of that came out first. All of the graphics, all of that came out first. Let's play fair here. All of that came out first. And Ben and Rupert, again, credit, Rupert and Ben, they were all on Nigel's ticket and the Reform's ticket. But now they're both radically right-wing and want nothing to do with Nigel and Reform. So my question to you is this. Do you think it is essential that the parties on the right, the Christian nationalist, conservative right, do you think that these parties all have to unite because of splitting the vote?
Not because of splitting the vote, because I don't think the vote is necessarily split. Nick Buckley said something today which struck me, in that no one owns anyone else's votes. So you have to earn their votes. You're not splitting it. You're not taking it from anyone, which is a fair point. But you've got to look where the momentum is. This is the point I'm seeing, in that I don't. So in some areas, Advance may have someone standing. Some areas, UKIP may have someone standing. In some areas, Restore may have someone standing. They may not all be standing in the same place. So coming together, unity doesn't necessarily mean all three parties unite. It may mean a pact where they don't stand against each other, or it may mean Advance and Restore unite, or UKIP and Restore unite. You know, they may combine, or they may form a pact together. So I don't necessarily believe in splitting the vote, but I think we also have to be careful of. So there are lots of good ideas coming from you, Nick. There are lots of good ideas coming from Rupert, lots of good ideas coming from Ben, which is all good. But I don't think it necessarily matters who has the idea first, because Rupert's playing this game as well. Restore keeps saying, look, Reform are going to copy our ideas now. Look at it. I don't think that's a helpful tactic. I think it's, if these people are copying good ideas, then that's good. We want them to copy the good ideas. We want the good ideas to be implemented. We want good policies. And so if they're coming from you, if they're coming from Rupert, like, I think that there's an element of, okay, hate them. Good, because that's what we want. We want these policies. And if they become part of the public conversation and momentum builds, and we actually get them put into legislation, we're all winning.
Fantastic. So I'm taking that as a yes. You don't believe that splitting of the vote happens or is a thing, but you do believe the unity is very, very important. So that's 50%. Yeah. That's 50% of it, and that's good enough for me. Let me ask you a question, because I know you know Rupert. What's the man's ideology? Because you and I both know the stat that Restore is coming out with daily. They're not defining that between supporters and paid up members. We all know that. Everybody knows that. It's exactly what your party did. I'm still yet to understand, because obviously Rupert hasn't contacted me yet. I'm still yet to understand the man's ideology. You know the man, your own admission. Calvin, what is Rupert's ideology?
Rupert's ideology is, or his worldview is, Britain a couple of decades ago. It is just, why have we given up something that was good, true, and beautiful, that could have remained that way if we'd have conserved it? We're no longer able to conserve it, so we must be retroactively trying to return to it. And so that means mass deportation, it means low taxation, it means letting people have the right to defend themselves. You know, today was the Englishman's castle is his own policy idea. It's just good old-fashioned conservatism. It is cultural Christianity. That's the one area that I hope he improves on, in that we need explicit Christian nationalism, not just cultural Christian nationalism. But if you look at the team, you know, Charlie Downs has been very good on this over the last month or so, just trying to articulate that Britain is and always has been a Christian nation. And if Britain's no longer a Christian nation, Britain's no longer Britain. I had a debate with Steve Laws about this last month, I think, when he was saying, no, it's more important for Britain to be white than anything else. I'm like, Britain happens to be white, and it's important that Britain remains predominantly white because that's how it always has been. But that's not the important factor. The important factor is that Britain is a Christian country. England has always been Christian since its inception, but the British Isles have been Christian for a long, long time. And if we want it to remain British, it has to remain Christian.
Is Rupert an ethno-nationalist?
I don't think so. I don't think those terms are even helpful. Because what the left are trying to do, and when I say the left, I'm trying to include Reform within this. What they're trying to do right now, people like Leila Cunningham are saying, you've either got to be Sid-nat or ethno-nat. And you and I have had this chat on this show before, in that I'm not a Sid-nat, I'm not an ethno-nat, I'm a Christian-nat, right? So some elements of it are true on both sides. You know, English people are an ethnic people. They're a group. So blood and soil makes sense. People who have a lineage, a heritage, a culture, an ancestry, and a claim to the land, that's important. But not in isolation. It comes along with the fact that the faith is a part of that group, of that people. The English people are a Christian people. And so people can say, yes, they're English-speaking people, they're predominantly white, skin-colored people, they're this, that, and the other people, but they're Christian people, first and foremost. I think that's what you and I would say.
I can't tell you how happy it makes me, because again, until I've spoken to Rupert, I can't. I'm in the dark. I can't tell you how happy it makes me that someone, again, you know him, self-admission, not an ethno-nationalist, but a small C conservative. That makes me, because now we can talk, we can do business, we can shake hands. Again, I asked about the ideology. He's small C conservative. That's what I need to know. We are therefore aligned, and we can do great things together. That is so wonderful.
Because look at the opposite.
It's Christian.
Look at what Reform are doing this week. They're going out there again. Lena Cunningham, who seems to be the spokesman for Reform right now, because she's running for the mayor of London, whenever that is going around saying that no, Britain's a secular country. This is a secular country. It's like we literally have a state church. We've got bishops from the Church of England, the state church, in our Houses of Parliament as the Lord's spiritual, supposedly providing a Christian moral compass to all of our legislation. Our judiciary, our legislative, every arm of our law and our military service are all Christian, because they're all underneath His Majesty, who is Christian, and he is the supreme governor of his Christian church in his Christian state, and the government are His Majesty's government. They're not our government, actually. That's not the way it works here. So they're not secular at all. None of it's secular. This is a Christian nation, and so Reform are trying to subvert and undermine our Christian nation. In fact, worse than that, we have a Mohammedan in Reform trying to subvert and undermine our Christian nation. And because if it's secular, all faiths are equal. Well, in Britain, not all faiths are equal, no. Everyone can worship their own faith in private, sure, but Christianity is the predominant faith of our nation.
It is indeed, and it shall remain that way. The Christian Knights will see to that. So look, you're hearing it here first, Patriots. Very, very interesting, and also quite inspiring as well. The three men can cooperate based on the similar. It needs to be quite precise, actually, when it comes to ideology. It needs to be that's a non-negotiable. The small C conservative aspect, the total rejection of nonsense terms made up, like things like CivNat, that's undermining by extremists. That's what they do. They want you to doubt yourself. They want you to become more extreme like them. So they label you something. No one agreed to that. No one said, yeah, okay, fine. These people are the people that they laud, like they make all these extremists. They make all the rules. That when you attack them, they scream victim. They're exactly the same as the far left, and their tactics are despicable. So this is interesting. This is exciting. And in due course, I'm sure that myself, Ben, and Rupert will talk, and I will keep that hand extended. Again, this is all for the Patriots tonight, so that you understand where we're coming from. It has to be unity, because we need to block the uni party. Now, I want to morph this into the main point before we begin the not so quick fire round. Tomorrow, Patriots, is a really important day. Not because the by-election in Gorton and Denton means anything to us. It's a by-election, and it's a media circus, right? We have the Greens have wheeled out their best candidate in terms of optics, you name it. They've deliberately brought out a girl like Hannah. They've done that on purpose. Nick Buckley has been wheeled out by Advance on purpose. Matt Goodwin has been wheeled out on purpose. The Greens and Reform in the Houses of Parliament are pretty much toe-to-toe in terms of numbers. You get the whole bit. Whenever you get MPs, you get serious funding. You get platformed in one of the most prestigious houses on planet Earth. This is tomorrow. It's not about the by-election. Tomorrow, we will see, and why we've spoken at length about this and why I've deliberately incorporated Father's response. Tomorrow, we will see what happens. If Reform landslide it, that's useful to know. If the Greens landslide it, that's useful to know. If Advance with Nick Buckley landslide it, that's useful to know. Everything tomorrow is, I'm pretty sure it is tomorrow. It is the 25th today, isn't it? Yes. Everything about tomorrow's outcome is useful. But Patriots, I'm telling you now, if when we look at the stats and it's clearly that this amount of people voted for Advance and this amount of people voted for Reform and the Greens win it, the entire world will say that that vote got split and it allowed for an Islamist sympathizer, communist, to gain power, to add to the Greens' collective power. So I'll say no more about it. But I back over to you, Father, because I'm tonight's episode is it's about Christianity, and I'm going to come on to it. But this is our intro point. So back over to you from my point.
So I know those people. Well, I know a couple of those people. Matt Goodwin, I've known for a long time. I don't particularly trust Matt Goodwin. I think he's a bit slimy. I think he's very ambitious and careerist. So I'd be concerned about him. Nick Buckley, I think, is a genuine guy with integrity, and I think that shines through. You know, the way that Matt's been attacking him, again, it shows you these people for who they really are. I think Nick has a good shot. If the Greens do win, though, heaven forbid, but if they do win, and people start saying it looks like a split vote, what does that mean from your perspective? What then?
So this is where I'm coming in, guys. This is the epicenter of everything. Remember, summer 24, Trafalgar Square, 50,000 patriots, all back reform, all back Nigel. I told them, no, stop. No one listened. Okay, fine, no problem. It's within minutes, the wheels came off of reform, and we all know the timeline. Then everyone said, you've got to get behind Advance. You've got to get behind Advance. Why aren't you getting behind Advance? The vitriol, the emotion, the hatred. It's anti-Christian and it's unprofessional. Then Restore comes along. You've got to get behind Restore. It's all nonsense, guys. It's all nonsense. This is about votes and blocking the uni party. Everyone right now listening to this understands that. We must block the uni party. We want to replace the uni party, but we're on the back foot. We're not on the middle foot. We're not on the front foot. We're on the back foot. We absolutely must stop the the uni party. Now, if you look at what happens tomorrow, in just over 24 hours, well, about 30 hours time, we'll have the stats. And let's just say, God forbid that the Greens clinch it, and both Matt Goodwin and Nick Buckley are looking at roughly the same amount of votes. Everyone worldwide will be saying, you get all of your American pundits, all of your American commentators, everyone, because they know about our first past the post system and how dire the state we're in. Everyone's going to look at that and say, why weren't you one party? Why didn't one of you stand down? Why didn't you collaborate? Why didn't you unify? All of this is going to happen if the Greens, their candidate is Hannah Spencer, if she clinches it here, and you combine the total votes for Nick Buckley and Matt Goodwin, i.e. Advance and Reform. And again, let's remember, Ben Habib was deputy leader under Nigel with Brexit, and the deputy leader with him for Reform. So for all of those years, he had no problem with Nigel. For all of those years, he had no problem with Reform. Then all of a sudden, he's kicked out. He has a massive problem with it. This is what's going to happen, Patriots. And this is why tonight, Father and I, what we're saying to you is so important. If you can,
to be fair, I do think he did have a problem. I think when Ben was in Reform, he made it very clear privately first, but then when that wasn't working publicly, that Reform had to be more democratic, and that Nigel was a mini dictator. And so I don't think he's changed stance. I think he's been pretty consistent. I know that from personal conversations that he's put at least 150 grand of his own money into Reform, and it wasn't because he backed Nigel, it's because he wanted a way to fix the country, and Reform was the only party that had any momentum at the time, so it was the only viable option. So I don't think he's flipping. Not that you've said he's flipping, but I just, I think we've got to be a bit more charitable in our perspectives of these people, because all of them are, not Farage, but the other ones, Ben and Rupert, have so much in common with yourself, in that everyone just wants to make the country better. We just want to fix this mess that we're in.
I'm totally with you, mate. We're singing from the same song sheet. But tomorrow, in just over 30 hours' time, my point is this: if the Greens clinch it, and you look at the total votes that Matt Goodwin gets and the total votes that Nick Buckley gets, and Nick Buckley and Matt Goodwin, everyone's calling for mass deportations. Forget Reform, forget Layla, forget those distractions. Matt Goodwin and Nick Buckley we're all calling for mass deportations. The Overton window shifted. If those votes are split and Hannah, God forbid, clinches it, you'll have an Islamist sympathizer, communist in the House of Parliament because Ben is running against Nigel. Because that's a schism, and you know better than I do. Schisms don't unify. That they not only do schisms destroy, but schisms are by design meant to destroy. It's not all randomly. Schisms sometimes go that way, sometimes go this way. Schisms, as you know, destroy. And that's why it's so important for us to have this conversation. So the Patriots are aware in 30 hours time, they may well look at it and go, well, hang on a minute. Two candidates, again, forget about Matt personally and forget about Nick personally. This is business. Two guys, both calling for mass deportations. And if there isn't a clear winner there, and you add up the votes, and if it had been one vote, then that would have outdone the Greens, and then Hannah Spencer wouldn't have won, and we would have arguably a right-wing voice or centre-right. None of it's good enough. None of it's, well, Nick's Christian, etc. But the entire, if everyone in Britain was watching this right now, everyone should be nodding their head going, yeah, I totally understand that, Nick. I totally get that. Yeah. And this is such a grave concern for me. I'll hand back over to you before we move on. What are your thoughts if that happens in just over 30 hours time, Father?
So even if that happens, right, even if, and God forbid it happens, but even if the Green Party gets in and you add Reform and Advance's votes up, and it would have been more. It doesn't necessarily mean that the vote was split. So I would never vote for Reform, as an example. I would happily, obviously my first vote would be for UKIP, but I'd happily vote if there wasn't a UKIP candidate for Advance or for Restore. I'd happily vote for those three parties, but I'd never vote for Reform. So even if Reform plus one of those three parties together, the numbers make up more than the alternative, doesn't mean that everyone would have voted for Reform if the alternative didn't stand. So that's why I don't necessarily think it's a split vote, because my vote, if it went for UKIP, Restore, or Advance, would never have gone to Reform.
So what I'm going to move on now, Patriots, but that's a really important point, and we differ slightly here, because when we all enjoy a bit of sport. I'm a rugby man, Six Nations on at the moment, and I can't wait for England. I can't wait for England this weekend. Obviously, I'm working because all I do is work and I don't get to do anything I like, but I love you and I love the country. So it's worth it. It's all armchair stuff before. There's this thing called a scoreline. There's this thing. And England-Scotland a few weekends ago, why was our fly half 10 Ford? Why was he drop goaling in front of the goal and then getting charged down like that? Everyone knows if you're number 10, if you're fly half, and you're in front of the post and you're on the 22 and you've got the right distance, you can't miss because you're in the 22. He fumbled it, got charged down. You can see the player. So this is what I'm saying, guys. You've got the before scoreline, which is right now with the hypotheses, etc. And then you've got the actual scoreline. Only in this instance, again, Calvin and I differ here about the splitting of the vote. The vast majority of people, if the unthinkable happens, will say, if Nick and Matt, if Reform and Advance had done a deal, if they could work together and supported each other and promoted each other and done the whole campaigning unity piece, if in the eventuality, God forbid, that Hannah wins and that puts a Green communist into power, into Parliament, everyone will be saying that, and it's never going to stop. It's just going to keep going and keep going and keep going. And I'm saying that is something that we've all got to start talking about and looking at, because it happened in summer 24 with Reform and Tories in about approximately 70 constituencies. And I know you're not no one's insensitive to that argument. That's why my message to Habib and to Lowe is it's got to be unity. Because another element, and we could talk more about this, is that we've only got one more shot. Everyone's agreeing we've got one more shot at this. So surely we have to work together, pool talent, pool resource, pool finance, pool skill sets. I hope that makes some sense to the Patriots and in an encompassing manner. Now, the topics that we're going to go through now are very, very brief. It was way more important that we all had a meeting of minds ahead of tomorrow's by-election in Gorton, which does mean talking about Restore, because Father and I haven't done that yet. It's and I will add to that one more thing. If you all think that there will be no more parties created on the right, you're wrong. There will be. There'll be more schisms, there'll be more parties, and it'll be the next best thing. So next up, on Saturday, the 21st of March, the next explicitly Christian UKIP hosted devotional procession is in Liverpool. Saturday, the 21st of March, that dedication. as you'll all be aware, bearing in mind the timing, is to the Passion of the Lord. We are mustering at the steps of Cathedral House facing Mount Pleasant Street. That's in Liverpool, L35TQ, mustering from 12 p.m. I wish, Calvin, you could be there. I hate the fact that you're not with me on these things. And you know what? I know you'll be thinking of us, but everyone, you can find the advert, you can find promo across social media. Take the clip, copy the link, share it, send the link into WhatsApp groups. That's the next UKIP religious march, which is on Saturday, the 21st of March. And for those of you who don't know, which is impossible, Christians on Saturday last week, as you all know, marched in Alum Rock in Birmingham. It was grey, it was dreary, and you had a little pack of about 20 Islamists who were ready to go, and they're well organized. They know what to do. They shout the way they shout. They talk over you. They lie. They deceive. We knew what was coming. We essentially said, listen, let's just get on with our march. This is explicitly religious, explicitly Christian. We are following in the footsteps of our Lord. And that means our behavior is too exemplary. We're not falling for your tactics. And listen, guys, 55 patriots, that was the head count. 55 patriots turned up, gave up their time on a Saturday afternoon, whilst the rugby's on, I might add, to devote to the Holy Family, which was the theme of the procession. Absolutely incredible, no issues whatsoever. We had Stand Up to Racism and the Socialist Worker Party with the Islamists shouting at us. There's loads more clips to go up, Father, but there's a few up already on social media. So I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone who turned up. It's Alum Rock is colonized. It's horrible being there, and there are people there who are Christian, and you know they've been forced into the shadows, and you know that the churches and all of these, the laity and the clergy of these colonized areas, they're not going to rock the boat with what? They're not going to ruffle feathers with what? They're on the back foot. So this is why we do what we do. We go into these areas and we say there's no such thing as no-go zones for Christians. Britain's a Christian land. We inspire the nation by walking into these areas with our crosses, facing the cross, carrying the cross, and making our devotions, our prayers, singing our hymns, saying our psalms, and making sure that the world sees that Christian courage still exists. And last but not least, in terms of announcements, this Saturday, 40 Paragon Street in Hull, we're going to be standing up against the far left with the monthly UKIP mass deportations demo. As always, every month, UKIP mass deportations this Saturday, meeting from 12 o'clock in Hull. That's at 40 Paragon Street in Hull. This Saturday, guys, the 28th. Be there, make your travel arrangements, show support. Everything we do is to honor God. It's all for God's glory. And we are also inspiring the nation. That's why we do what we do. When we turn up at street level, we inspire the nation that there are good men and women who are saying in leadership, who are saying we're going to take our country back, and nothing, not the Islamists, not the communists, not the liberals, nothing can stop us. So a few very important announcements. But first up, and I'm going to hand over to Calvin straight away on this, we've got some interesting news with regards to what has and hasn't happened with regards to the monarchy in the last week, and with certain aides to Starmer. That's a fun conversation. But first up, we've got a fire at a church in Southall, and that was in the last couple of days. This comes at the same time where it's been announced that up to 73.4 million in funding is going to be available. That's a huge, great big number. 73.4 million in funding from 26 to 2027 through the government's different protective security schemes for Jewish, Muslim, and other faith sites. Now, in terms of the Christian allowance, that gets lumped into the Hindu and Sikh allowance, by the way, and those numbers are at 1.5 million. So out of the 73.4, 1.5 million is going to Christians, Hindus, and Sikhs. So what, maybe 500 grand is going to the Christian community as we see the rise of arson attacks, specific vandalism, and specific threats. Father, over to you. We can't speculate about this particular fire. The church was ablaze in Southall recently. It's so sad to see. People will say electrics this, candles the other, and they'll say the church was abandoned anyway. We know the stats. What were your thoughts when you heard about this church being ablaze?
Yeah, people are seeing on your screen right now the sun, raging inferno, massive fire breaks out at church in West London as crews tackle blaze and road closed. I've been covering this for, oh my gosh, I can't even think how long now. Years. Fires breaking out in France, fires breaking out in Canada, of churches constantly, week after week, month after month, churches erupting in a blaze of fire. And we never find out who or why caused the fire. That's the problem I have. And so I'm hoping that because this is in our homeland, they will actually have some answers this time. And obviously, it's all speculation at the moment, but eventually the truth has to come out, because to most of us, it seems obvious what's going on. The same people who are trying to buy up our churches, the ones they can't buy, they're burning them down. Something has to be done about this Christian persecution in a Christian country. It's obviously this is what we're seeing at home, but it's worse abroad. In Nigeria, Christians are being murdered every day for their faith by the same people. And as far as I can see, there's only one politician that's actually speaking out against this, and that's, God bless him for doing it. He's not right in all things, but on this, Donald Trump has spoken out. I would love to see someone stand up in that great house of parliament and speak out against Christian persecution. Not just in Nigeria, but also at home. I want them to speak out against these churches blazing in fire out of suddenly, seemingly nowhere by seemingly no one. Some people have to start speaking out against it publicly, not just me and Nick and people who care and obviously campaign about this regularly, but people who are in positions of power, in positions of influence. They need to use that power and influence to stop this.
This is absolutely devastating. UKIP put out a statement. Worryingly, we are seeing an increase in arson attacks. The church insurer, Ecclesiastical, recorded 64 incidents of arson attacks in the UK churches in 2001 and 67 in 2002. So just over 20 years ago, it was expected that there'd be an average of about 65, 66 arson attacks. Police data obtained by the Countryside Alliance found that 188 offences of arson against churches in London alone in a single year, 2019 to 2020. Now, if Father's point is the point, we never know by whom and we never know why. Well, that's hugely problematic because this is a Christian country. Everything we have built on, everything we owe to God, all of it. And that's it. So, and church is hallowed ground. So an attack at the church, I don't care what denomination people are, attack at the church is an attack at God. That's it. There's a full stop there. That's not a negotiable conversation. So we're looking at potentially in 2002, 66 arson attacks, whatever, horrific. But in 2019, maybe 188 offences. So double. It goes on to say when churches are attacked, not only is it costly, but the communities they serve lose out. UKIP pledges to ensure churches are properly funded, protected, supported, and empowered. So long story short here, Patriots, it's really simple. There's around 40,000 churches in the UK. My church, my parish, there's locks on the gate, there's locks on the other gate, the driveway bit, the other gate, there's security cameras everywhere. All of this stuff costs money. Under my government, and hopefully with Calvin stood shoulder to shoulder with me, churches, all of them would be protected. And if there were flocks associated to parishes up and down the country, it breaks our heart. We see it more and more here, there, everywhere. Church has gone up for sale, 35 grand, beautiful little chapel, little cathedral somewhere. It happens all the time. Why? Because the clergy, the parish laity has died out. They're not having babies. So there's no one in there. And what is in there is dying out. And it happens. And I'm the first not the first person to have done it, but I'm the first person to call it out. Obviously, people have been doing it for years, and that is, do you want it or not, guys? It's really simple. You want the elderly in there. Of course, we want the elderly in church. You want your middle-aged in there, and you want your youth. You want your married youth. I want to hear babies crying during mass. I want to hear children in mass. So you'll see this more and more and more. So under my government, what will happen is, if the laity don't want it, I'll say that's absolutely fine, but that's hallowed ground. Now we need to repurpose that for homeless people, for drug addiction, and there's so many different things. Obviously, children's nurseries is often used as well. And I work with Calvin and with clergy to come up with all the right ideas with regards to what that happens. But it will be illegal for it to turn into anything else, like a mosque or a synagogue or a temple or whatever, etc. 40,000 churches, patriots, in this country, 1,900 mosques, infinitely fewer mosques, 450 synagogues, infinitely fewer mosques and synagogues. Yet we're looking at something around 40 million going to mosques and synagogues. Well, we all know what that's about. That's the virtue signal, isn't it? That's from the government, because obviously of the sectarian violence from the Islamists. And I totally stand with the Jewish community wanting to defend themselves. But what we've got here is an amount that maybe is 500 grand potentially, or actually, if you do the math, it's something like £80. If you work out what we're getting, our chunk, and 40,000 churches, it's like 50, 60, 70, 80 pounds per site. So the point, patriots, is not, obviously we are discriminatory. It's either the one true faith or it's not. And it's not about fairness either. It's about talking about the defunding of Christianity, a death by 1,000 cuts, the fire there, the arsonist there, the person who gets away with it. We never get answers. The 80 quid per site, all of it is death by 1,000 cuts. It's abuse. It's traumatic. No shots fired. No one's guilty, right? You just slowly wear it all down. But the overriding point, and I know Father agrees with me, where is the laity? Where's the laity? And also, if we're not having babies, that's hugely problematic, because you're just going to have this really elderly population and nothing's going to be replacing it in the pews. Nothing's going to be sat where when we leave, when we go, when we die, nothing's going to replace us. So as ever, it's a multifaceted point. And I know Father agrees with me with regards to personal responsibility 101. You've got to get back in the parishes. Did you want to come back, Calvin, on any one of those points there?
That's spot on. And because you're speaking to the people that are listening, and what can they do on the most basic level? Get married, have kids, teach them the faith. If you're teaching your kids the faith, they're going to stand up for the faith too. We need more Christians to be living more Christ-like lives. And then any other faith or cultural idea that comes into our land will be a minority, because we together, collectively, the British people, will be a Christian people, as we're supposed to be. The fact that most people have just stopped caring about their faith, regardless of their salvation, people have stopped caring about eternal bliss for some reason. But the fact that people have stopped caring about their faith means they've stopped caring about the collective responsibility we have to each other. And we are a community. We live in a society. We have an obligation to our brother and our sister, to our next door neighbor, quite literally. And we've disregarded that over selfish materialism that gets us nowhere other than damnation.
You're hearing it live and direct, patriots. Mass deportations doesn't solve abortion. Mass deportations doesn't solve godlessness. Mass deportations doesn't solve liberalism. Mass deportations doesn't solve that broken, horrible, disenfranchised feeling where you look around as a young man filled with testosterone and porn addictions, not knowing where to go, not knowing what to do. Mass deportations solves so many of our problems, but the epicenter of the problem is us. We must take responsibility. Mass deportations doesn't solve porn addiction. Mass deportations doesn't solve radical feminism. You're hearing it live and direct from a party and a leader and leaders, plural, that care so very much about taking responsibility, because God's watching, patriots, and he's judging, and he's saying, you're doing all this talk about mass deportations and taking the country back, but you're not honoring me. So why would I give you the grace to win and succeed? And that is why UKIP exists. That's why I do what I do. That's why I'm leader. And that's why I fight. Not because I'm perfect, I'm exactly the same as Calvin. I'm the same as any man, red-blooded and a sinner. But every single day, I focus my heart and mind at honoring God before anything else. And that's a true story. And I know that there are plenty of people who watch this who, again, repentant, unworthy sinners who focus and who are learning the journey to focus on honoring God, because without that, patriots, we won't be rewarded. Moving on to something that I want to spend no time on whatsoever. In fact, do you know what? I'm going to hand straight over to you, Calvin. I did this with Newsmax last week. This sensationalism. Do you know what? I can't. Over to you, Calvin. What are your thoughts about the circus?
Andrew Mountbatten Windsor released under investigation after arrest, as it happened. And there's a live blog there on the Guardian website, which isn't a website I recommend you reading, but it's handy for this purpose. It seems to me, I mean, you said circus, that's a good analogy, the bread and circus, right, to get us distracted. But it seems to me that what they're doing is they're throwing the old guard on the bus to protect the new guard. The elite are still there. The Jeffrey Epsteins, they're all still there, abusing, raping, murdering, and potentially even eating, for goodness sake, children and babies. They're still out there manipulating stock markets. They're still out there with their illegal, shady deals, whilst the rest of us struggle to put food on the table. And what they're doing is they're throwing a few less than useful but high-profile people under the bus to distract us from the rest of them. Peter Mandelson hasn't been, a powerful and influential person for a decade now. He pretty much ran 2 Labour governments. That would have been the time to arrest him. Prince Andrew, he's been stripped of his royal titles already. Yes, he is the king's brother, but still, it's like he's a high-profile figure. They know they can do away with, and they continue their debauchery, their degeneracy, their evil, wicked ways of manipulation and abuse, and that's what's going on. So the bread and circuses are to keep us distracted. What we need is for the proper high-profile elites who are still active to be arrested, questioned, prosecuted, and if they are guilty of any crimes against children, to be hanged, essentially.
That's it. We're going to move on. So if it's really simple, if Andrew and whoever else is guilty of whatever, whenever you deep dive into all these stories, it's allegation this, an assumption that, and it was an anonymous tip off from the FBI. No, if they're guilty, like for example, everyone knows the gross misconduct that Mandelson and Andrew are involved in. Everyone knows by now it's a maximum sentence if found guilty is life. Everyone knows that. Okay, so if they're guilty and those are the rules, that's it. But Calvin's right. It's a huge circus so that we focus in just on one thing. And guess what? The mainstream media, what they want to do, as long as it's a white guy, as long as it's something to do with Christianity, as long as it's something to do with the royal family, as long as it's something to do with anything white, British, English, our traditions, go after that. Go after absolutely everything as well. Is it a smokescreen? Again, surely due process follows now. I think Calvin's absolutely right. And I think we've got to be on our toes, patriots. There's an agenda. There is an agenda to make sure that we are as demoralized and as downtrodden. And if we're demoralized on the right and downtrodden, that means that the communists are empowered. By definition of us coming down, they go up. Jumping very quickly across to Wayne Broadhurst, God rest his soul, last summer in West Drayton, in Uxbridge, in London, the individual who is, I believe he's still accused, he's been found that he's not fit to make a plea or stand trial. Father, straight over to you on this one.
If you're from another country, you come to our country, you commit a crime, you're gone instantly, deported. Simple as that. Afghan migrant accused of killing dog walker not fit to plead or stand trial, says the Daily Express. If he's not fit to plead or stand trial, basically he's going to get off scot-free. My stance is not that he should stand trial or be able to plead. My stance is that if he is guilty of killing someone who's out walking a dog, he should not be in our country in the first place. And since he is, he should be gone. It's a great shame that we are so soft. What's this? Gov UK, record funding to protect faith communities. Government announces a record 73.4 million in funding in 2026 and 2027 to protect security at Jewish, Muslim, and something. Of course, the Jews and the Muslims come first. Of course they do. When the Christians are being attacked, let's protect everyone else.
There was a story today about a man in Manchester. I haven't had a chance to look at this story yet, but some guy apparently has walked near a mosque with an axe. We're going to move on to close, but listen, I just want to come back to the funding situation. I'm outraged that of the 70 million, and again, I've been through the numbers about how many churches, how many mosques, how many synagogues. I'm outraged that of the 70 million, if you work it out per church, it's like 80 quid or something like that. It is absolutely disgusting, bearing in mind the number of arson attacks. Again, it's absolutely infuriating. Now, what was the subject before that, Calvin? Can you remember? Sorry, what was the one before that? What were we talking about there? The Afghani, right? So this is the guy, right? So Calvin's mine, and one day, hopefully, shoulder to shoulder, Calvin and I will be in Parliament, and you'll hear it live and direct from there rather than from the bunker right now. So my approach is
Tenconi Towers to the Parliament.
Tenconi Towers in Parliament. We're going to have a little tower there, and this is the deal. So this guy who killed or is alleged to have killed Wayne Broadhurst last summer, he came in on a lorry illegally. And then he's committed murder, so he needs to die. He must be hung. So that this is the kind of government you're asking for, patriots, with me at the helm and my team. You came here illegally, so that means you're getting deported. You're barred entry. You're dealt with in the most severest of manners. You came here illegally. We didn't ask that. And if you come illegally, therefore you've got murderous or rape intent, right? Why are you coming illegally? I don't care about who's coming here illegally to, there's so many people that have settled in places like Britain and America. They came in illegally and then they got a job and then they got the papers. And at some point, once they were living a cushy lifestyle, they then applied for asylum and the government went, yeah, sure, you've been here 3 years illegally, but now you're an asylum seeker. We'll sort you out. No, because you get cases like this where Wayne Broadhurst has been murdered by a guy who came here on a lorry. Should never have been here. It's this thing called border control. So in the case of that would be, as we've said, the most heinous of crimes. That would be the death penalty by hanging. And no apologies. We're going to jump straight to the last point. I'm going to steal Calvin for just another minute because this is where I close tonight. And it is to do with calling out tonight's main segment, calling out the traitors, the cowards, and the hypocrites. And I need to get this video up, so please bear with me 1 second. This was a guy who calls himself a reverend who was in an interview with LBC, and this was yesterday. I believe the guy's name is Steve. Calvin might even know him, but we're going to get thoughts directly from Father after watching this video, and it should be playing any moment now. And then we're going to come back to me to close. If Father can stick around, great. But I know he's got to go. He's got other things to do.
While you do that, well done to Daniel Richards. He's the guy who got the video in Manchester, apparently.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's his footage, it seems. Well done.
Do you know what happened before the video starts? Do you know what happened with the axe?
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah, me neither. I've got to get on that, but it's been a busy day today. So this video should start playing. This video should start playing soon. Apparently a guy called Steve calls himself a reverend on LBC. And for those of you who've not seen it, he said that Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior, the Son of Man, the Word made flesh, wasn't a Christian. He was a Jew. That's that. Yeah, I know, right? The rage, right? Table flipping. One of these days, both Calvin and I are going to flip our tables at the same time and just go off air like that's it. I had enough. But this is it. It might come up. Is it going to come up? I don't know. This is far from optimal. It really is just beyond painful. Why is everyone using the internet tonight? So that's what he's done. This guy called Steve, this reverend. You can check it out if you put Steve the Reverend into X, guys, or wherever. You'll see it comes up, and he says, and I can tell you, it's ingrained in my brain. He said, our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, wasn't a Christian, he was a Jew, and the very definition of Christianity is that it's inclusive. The very definition of Christianity, not tenets, not pillars, not ideas and concepts, not mysteries, not magisterium, not anything to do with theology. The central tenet of the one true faith, and I'll hand over to you now, Calvin, is that we are, by definition, we're inclusive. Where do you even begin with that type of blasphemy, Calvin?
Right. Where to begin? Separating the past from the present. So the Jews of the Bible were the Hebrews, the Israelites, and people born in Judea. So Jews of today are a different group of people. They're people who tend to be from Israel, a modern state founded in 1948. But the Jews of the Bible were waiting for their Messiah, waiting for their Christ, who is the Son of God, the living Son of God. And he came down to earth as God incarnate, fully God, yet fully man, Jesus, the Christ, and the Jews followed him. Now, thank God, we were brought in too. So the Gentiles were grafted into that vine. So Jews and Gentiles followed Christ, and we needed a new word for that because, well, there was no religion of the Jews weren't the Jews. Like, Jew is a modern term for people who were born in Judea, but Judaism wasn't the religion, right? They were just
everyone. So therefore, to be a Christian nation is to be an inclusive nation. That's my point. And we become great again. We become
I know this
great
guy. I've debated this guy
by
before.
being inclusive.
I think he's an active homosexual, so he's clearly not Christian. But those people, the Jews and the Gentiles, followed Christ. We needed a new name for that. Christians, right? Christians, followers of the Christ. So Christ's religion is a silly question. Why? Christ wasn't Jewish in the terms of he wasn't a follower of the Jewish faith. He wasn't even Jewish in the terms of ethnically Jewish. He was from Nazareth, right? He's born in Bethlehem, but you can argue that he's from the greater area of Judea even, but that doesn't make him Jewish in modern terms either. But Christ had no faith in anything other than his Father. Christ was a follower of God the Father. We are followers of Christ. We are members of his religion. He is the religion. He is the faith. He is the faith, the truth, the way. He is the life. He is everything. He is the Alpha and the Omega. He's beyond time, but he was here at the beginning of time, and he'll be here at the end of time. We hope to join him in eternity. So to say that Christ is Jewish is subverting the Christian truth. And so it's probably coming from a very, very dark place. So we should pray for Steve. I think that I didn't see the full footage, but it looked like Steve Chalk anyway. So if it is, we should pray for that man because he's certainly been misleading people for a long, long time.
It is Steve Chalk, and the LBC Expo said to be, quote, to be a Christian nation is to be an inclusive nation. Reverend Steve Chalk has an uncomfortable truth for Reform's mission to make Britain Christian again. Steve, you have no idea what's coming. Reform they're not a Christian nationalist party. You'll have your Danny Krugers in there, and it's so problematic with it's so problematic. Danny's liked and whatnot, but he was speaking with Jacob Rees-Mogg and GB News last night or the night before, and just basically praising Zia. Look, in a Christian nationalist party, if you're not getting anywhere near high command, if you're not a Christian, of course you're not. We're Christian nationalists. Britain's never had anything like this. Father, I've been ever so greedy with my time. You've been amazing. Do you have to leave, or can I steal you for longer?
I do. I've got to go to the next thing, unfortunately. But all I'll say is God bless you, Nick. God bless you, everyone watching. And I wish you all a very blessed Lent. I know it can be challenging, but remember, Christ died for us. The very least we can do is fast, pray, and alms give for him. Until next time, guys.
Amen. God bless you, Calvin. Thank you so much for being with us, my friend. We Patriots, we're so lucky to have Calvin with us, and we are at UKIP. We're surrounded by good men of the clergy as well. So it's not just thank you to Calvin, but it's a thank you to all those clergy who are keeping a watchful eye over us. They're helping, they're supporting. Now, I know for a fact they're praying for us. The Christian nationalist operation in Britain, we do need the support of the clergy, and there's a growing number. on that council who are assisting UKIP. Thanks be to God. Now, there are a couple of other stories that I wanted us to go through, depending on how quickly this pops up on my screen. There's one about IVF and some women in Georgia who came from Thailand to so this story is important, Patriots, because IVF doesn't come up a lot in politics, but there's a reason why. If you're Christian, you absolutely have to reject IVF surrogacy. You for those of you who are Christian, you'll know this. And this stems obviously from the sacrament of marriage. It's marriages between one man, and the church recognizes the marriages between one man and one woman, and not everyone is blessed to have children, but we foster with great devotion the idea of adoption, and so surrogacy and IVF is absolutely out. Let's have a little look at this story. Around 100 women were kept as slaves on a human egg farm in Georgia. 3 Thai women who were freed from the egg mafia on January the 30th, presumably this year, after being exploited for half a year. They were lured in by a job offer on Facebook promising them a salary of between 11,500 and 17,000 euros. That's 9,600 to 14,100. So if that's an annual salary, that's obviously, I don't know what the time frame is there, but you got to be pretty desperate, right? That's seriously desperate. Once they've arrived, they realized the job offer was a front. The women were pumped up with hormones to stimulate their ovaries and were forced to have their eggs removed once a month. If they asked their captors to leave, they were told they had to fork out 2,000 euros, about 1,600 quid, for the farm owners first. Well, by definition, that's captivity, because they can't do that. By definition, I would have thought that was going to be very difficult for them to do. The eggs collected from the women are understood to have been sold, trafficked into other countries for use in vitro fertilization. So I'll leave it to you guys to decide. I'll leave it to the atheists and the agnostics and those Christians, supporters of the faith, those who are devout, the faithful. I'll let you decide. It's a bit like mass uncontrolled immigration. When the left say, "What are you doing? You're so racist. You're always going after the immigrants." No, it's because if even one of them didn't need to be here, and that one person goes on to commit mass murder or rape or whatever, we don't want them here, because we've got our own problems. Each society has its own problems, and that's why you have laws and boundaries and borders and legislation, etc., etc. It's kind of the same with IVF. The amount of people who will say IVF's great, IVF's fantastic, like it produces life. Now reconcile that with that story. And this is the era that we've entered into, is that one side says what they say and we all go, yep, okay, I hear that. But then there's this other side, well, let's listen to that, and we'll go, actually, do you know what? It's a hard no, it's a hard pass, because unfortunately all this evil comes with it as well. It's completely unacceptable. Well, hang on a minute. If you've got 6 of one and half a dozen of the other, what's the final authority? Does anyone know? What's the final authority in that situation? Imagine you got 2 kids, 8 and 11, 2 boys, mum and dad in a household. They're going at it. Mum's had enough. She's had enough all day. All day long she's been having it. Father comes home. Who's the final authority, guys? Is it the children? Because the vast majority of wives and mothers I know, and I think I know well enough to say this, they'd want to outsource that straight to the dad, and the mother doing her best all day long. You with me on the scenario here? You deal with that. Right, absolutely. So in this case, with IVF, with mass deportations, what is the worldview? Is it a biblical worldview? Should it be the Christian worldview? Is that what the church's worldview? Which church? Is it the Bible's worldview? Because if you go to the Bible, if you go to chapter and verse, you're going to find nothing in there about mass deportations. You'll find a bit about immigration, and the left will bastardize the chapter and verse in Matthew about love thy neighbor. They'll bastardize that. Who's the final authority, guys? I'm going to leave you with that thought here on this very harrowing story about women's eggs being used so that they can then be sold to developing countries where affluent, posh, probably white liberals decide they want to use the IVF scheme, which, again, on the face of it, maybe people go, well, that's creating life, so that's great, right? Now reconcile that with that story. Not for me to decide. I know where I stand. It's for the Patriots to decide. There was one more. We've spoken a bit about Peter Mandelson because that involves also talking about Prince Andrew, Andrew Mountbatten, Andrew Windsor Mountbatten. That involves talking about the two of those guys as well. The offence is gross misconduct in their position. If found guilty, that's a maximum of life in jail. So we were going to talk a little bit about Mandelson, but we've done that. So I'm going to bring up one more story, Patriots, and this is to do with Starmer, which I, as you know from my style, I really don't like doing it at all because it's so boring. We're taking our country back. Keir is so problematic as an individual, and it really is just. The Mandelson thing is weird because the allegation is that Starmer knew about Mandelson and what he was and wasn't involved in, but he gave him the appointment anyway with regards to trade ambassador, I want to say, to America, if memory serves. So this is hugely problematic. And of course, what's going to happen is that we're putting our faith first, which means that we need to stop being so utterly horrible about people. Everyone has a soul, ladies and gentlemen. But when you're in office, when you're of that command, shall we say, that ilk, you're held to a higher standard. So Starmer's judgment stinks. That's the upshot from the Mandelson stuff. When all's said and done, no one's been proven guilty yet. I mean, it's Mandelson, so whatever. They just Tony Blair, Mandelson, just that whole lot. They're everywhere. These people. They must have so much blood on their hands, etc., etc. You are going to be held to a higher standard, Keir Starmer, your prime minister. Your judgment clearly stinks. And then, again, here's the story, guys. Keir Starmer rocked as scandal exposed, pedos let off with warning letters. This was a story that broke on, I want to say it was Monday. It was either the end of last week or the start of this week. And basically what's happened was when Starmer was head of the CPS, he's given out, when Starmer was head of CPS, he oversaw the use of the term paedophile ASBOs that allowed suspects to get off with a warning. This is the Daily Express, an Express investigation found documents from his time as Britain's top prosecutor describing how the Prime Minister was drafting and agreeing warning notices with police chiefs that whistleblowers say have been given to suspected child rapists. Pedo ASBOs carry no legal power or punishment if breached, but can form part of a latter prosecution. This known officially as child abduction warning notices. 13,000 were used between 2008 and 2025. It's stomach churning stuff, guys. Again, no shots fired. You know, he didn't take a flamethrower and walk into Tesco's one day, or like mass murder or rape. The level of insidious wickedness that we are engulfed in by people at the top. And a lot of it's the Marxists. A lot of it's the Marxist agenda. In the case of Starmer, I think the guy's 100% a Marxist. I don't know what Tony Blair is. Just awful, truly, truly awful. But there are so many evils that we need to rip out of society. Marxism is one of them. The power hungry, the liberal elite, the degenerates, the scumbags, and we need to show them what holy fury looks like, Patriots. That's my pledge to you as we close tonight, my brothers and sisters. There is only one hope for Britain. That is Christianity. And what do we mean when we say Christianity? We mean the one true God of the one true faith, the Christ, the Son of Man, the Word made flesh. We must all kneel and admit we got it so very wrong. And we must ask for God's forgiveness. And then we must ask for God's grace. Christian nationalism, the rise of political Christianity, that's the solution for Britain. It's not about money, not interested in people that have got money. If people want to back us, that's so blessed. But at leadership level, at candidate level, in terms of our messaging, we're ordinary, hardworking people, putting our faith first, working fighting, striving, all for the glory of God, asking for his forgiveness, repenting, doing the best we possibly can, kneeling and saying, this is all for you, God. This is your kingdom. We are your sheep. We submit to you. This is what Britain needs. My team are not wrong. Leadership, we're not wrong. I'm not wrong as your leader. We must turn back to God. We must turn back to the faith. We must ask for forgiveness. We must course correct, and we must vow that everything we do will be for the glory of God. Go to ukip.org, and if you are not patriots, if you are not a member, go to ukip.org, sign up, become a member now. Once you're a member, you can put your name forward to stand as a candidate. That's how you win in a first past the post system. You return a majority of candidates. And I'm not leaving it to any other leaders. I'm not leading it to any other parties. We're taking our country back. No diplomacy, no retreat, no surrender. We're taking it all back. We're getting justice for our girls. We are fighting to deliver justice for Britain, all the victims of all the corruption, all the wickedness, and all of the toxic ideologies, from radical feminism all the way across to Marxism and so on and so forth. We're delivering justice to Britain. We really are. But we're not going to be able to do that without God's strength and without God's grace. And you're not getting God's strength and God's grace without first kneeling and asking for his forgiveness and then asking for the grace. I'm wrong, patriots, regardless of your theological proclivity. I'm not wrong. And I'm asking you to back that vision. Britain needs Christians. It needs Christian warriors. It needs Christian knights. It needs Christianity. Go to ukip.org and become a member. Once you become a member, you can then put your name forward to stand as a candidate. Once you are a candidate, you will be given everything. And no one's going to ask you how many candidates has UKIP got. No one's going to ask you that. They're going to say things like this. How many members has UKIP got? This is not the right question. This is what I'm here to do, is to help you out. This is not the right question. This is what, how many members have they got? Because such and such has got 100 trillion members. This is not the right question. Is UKIP a registered political party? Yes. Great. Are they Christian nationalists? Yeah. Are they putting all of that first in their missions and their policies? Yeah. Abortion, euthanasia, deportations, the whole spectrum? Yes. How many candidates have they got? No one asks. We don't volunteer. You don't ask. No problem. Don't ask. We won't tell. How many candidates has UKIP got? Because I know that it's more candidates than any other right-wing party. It's so-called right-wing. There are parties on the right that refuse to call themselves right-wing. Be vigilant as the fox, patriots. Turn the emotion off and lead with an ordered mind, which is central to our faith and what the church fosters. The question is, how many candidates does the party have? I know how many candidates that we have who are good to go. I know how many candidates are going to be standing, and the number is phenomenal. So we'll see what happens when it comes to voting and when it comes to elections. My hand remains extended despite those achievements, these numbers that we're producing. My hand remains extended to everyone on the right. We put Britain first, and we take our country back through unifying, because we're on the back foot trying to block the Uni Party. We're on the back foot trying to block the communists. We've got to work together, patriots. Go to ukip.org, become a member. Once you're a member, you can at least consider putting your name forward to stand as a candidate. Take that membership link and send that into your WhatsApp groups. Share it with friends and family, work colleagues, your associates. Send that link as far and as wide as you possibly can. Next Wednesday, 8 p.m. Quick glance at the calendar. We will go again. Thank you so much, all of you who have joined me and Calvin tonight. Thank you so very much. God bless you all in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. I hope you are all having a fruitful and peaceful Lent. If you're like me, you're starving hungry. It's time to break the fast. God bless you, patriots. We go again next Wednesday, 8 p.m. And if you can, please stand with us this Saturday in Hull, 40 Paragon Street, mustering from 12 p.m.